In this demo, I'll show you how to create an availability set and a VM configuration that achieves a 5 nines SLA for an iOS web application running on Windows Server. Now, an availability set is a logical grouping of virtual machines distributed across multiple Azure fault domains and update domains within a single Azure data center. Doing this ensures application resilience against both planned maintenance and unplanned hardware failures. Now, what a fault domain is it represents physical hardware isolation, typically different server racks with independent power supplies and network switches. By putting VMs across different fault domains, a single hardware failure in an Azure data center only will affect a subset of instances, not your entire workload. Update domains are logical groupings of VMs that undergo Azure platform maintenance and reboots together. Now, when Azure performs updates on its infrastructure, it will stagger those updates across update domains and reboot only one domain at a time and allow 30 minutes of recovery before moving on to the next update domain. So if you put different workloads in different update domains, they're not going to be updated at the same time. Now, for a Windows Server IIS deployment, an availability set has the following advantages. Multiple IIS VMs distributed across fault and update domains will ensure the website remains accessible even during planned Azure maintenance or hardware failures. Azure, by default, will guarantee a 99.95 SLA when you put VMs in the appropriate fault and update domains. To get the higher level SLA we're going for, we're going to also put the VMs on premium storage. Now, because we've got them in different fault and update domains, only one IIS instance will be rebooted at any time, with traffic automatically redirected to healthy instances via some type of Azure load balancer, which we're going to actually use Application Gateway for. Now, it's critical to note that you need to assign VMs to an availability set when you create them. And you can't go and take existing running VMs and add them to an availability set. I start in the Azure portal in the virtual machines node. I select create and then I select virtual machine. First thing I'm doing is I am creating a new resource group that's going to host both virtual machines in this availability set. Here it's called Zava IIS. I'm intending to create two virtual machines, Zava IIS1 and Zava IIS2 that'll be part of this availability set. I start with Zava IIS1, I'll put it in USE2, I select availability set, and because no availability set exists, I select create new, and then I provide it with the name Zava Availability Set. I go with the default settings of 2 fault domains and 2 update domains. I provide a local admin account. Instead of using administrator, here I'm using Prime, and I'm providing it with a password and a replica password. I am selecting no inbound ports. So by default at deployment, nothing will be open. We're going to be doing that a bit later. Here I am choosing that I am going to use my existing Windows Server licenses, and I'm going to confirm that I am eligible for those licenses. Important here when we're looking at disks is to make sure that premium SSD is selected. In this case, it's selected because of the SKU of VM I've selected, but with an availability set and premium SSD on the VMs, we're achieving the 5 nines of availability that we want to achieve when we're modernizing our Windows Server workloads. We're leaving the defaults here, so it'll delete it when the VM's removed. We're leaving the advanced settings of using managed disks, and we're not worrying about ephemeral OS disks. On networking, we're going with the defaults. It's created a new virtual network here. We do need to make note of this virtual network because when we're configuring the availability set, the other host will need to be also connected to this virtual network. It's giving us a public IP. So when we're doing testing later, we will be testing using this public IP. But in the long run, configuring an availability set using Application Gateway, these VMs wouldn't have a public IP address and you'd be managing them through Windows Admin Center. So we're not opening any public inbound ports. We go on to management. The only thing we're doing in management is we're removing automatic shutdown and we're removing hot patch. The only reason we're removing hot patch is it will enable it in a later demo. On monitoring, I'm removing boot diagnostics. We're going to be configuring monitoring in a later demo. Nothing to add on advanced. There's no worry at this moment about extensions and applications, no tags. We click review and create, and then we click create and the virtual machine's deployed. The next part of this demo is then going back and creating a second virtual machine. So we go back, we create a next virtual machine, we put it in the same resource group, we give it the name Java IIS2, same region. Now on availability options, we choose availability set, but because we've already created an availability set, we can choose the existing availability set. So this is adding this second VM to that availability set that we created with the first VM. And we're going to essentially choose the same settings here. So we're going to give it the same local administrator account. We're going to turn off inbound ports. We're going to use the hybrid benefit. On disks, we don't need to change anything because it's already premium SSD, which is going to give us our availability options. We need to make sure on networking that the virtual network that it's deployed to will be the same virtual network as the other host, Java IIS1. So here it's got Java IIS1 VNet, so we know that that's right. We don't need to worry about opening any ports. We don't need to do anything on management except for removing auto shutdown and disabling hot patch. We don't do anything on monitoring other than disabling boot diagnostics. We click review and create, and then we create. So now we've got our two virtual machines and they are associated with an availability set. To verify that, we go into virtual machines. I'm selecting the first virtual machine, IIS1, and you can see under availability and scaling, we can select availability and scaling and then select availability set. And we can see that they're part of Java Availability Set. We select Java Availability Set and that gives us Java IIS1 and Java IIS2, which are confirmed as running. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install Windows Admin Center on each node, or at least that will be implied. We're only going to show it being installed on the first node. The reason I've put this in here is that I want to show that you can manage everything through the Azure portal without having to go in and do anything with remote desktop or remote SSH or remote PowerShell. So we open the outbound port and we install Windows Admin Center. The other element of using Windows Admin Center through the Azure portal is configuring the right role assignment. So here we add the role assignment. We type in Windows Admin Center Administrator. We add the Prime at Java account. This will allow this particular user that's logged into the portal to use Windows Admin Center to connect to this particular virtual machine. The next thing we're demonstrating is that these virtual machines already have just-in-time access configured through Microsoft Defender for Cloud. When we click connect, what we're looking at here is it's going and saying, right, we've got the role configured, we've got everything, so we just go configure JIT for us. So this is opening up the port temporarily, then we're connecting via Windows Admin Center. So we're showing good admin practice by only making an administrative connection through just-in-time access. The next thing we're doing is we go down to roles and features in Windows Admin Center. We expand web server and then we select the web server role and we click install. This is now going and deploying IIS on this particular node in the availability set. So at the end of this first demo, what we've done is created an availability set of Windows Server VMs, configured those VMs to be managed through Windows Admin Center in the Azure portal, used a VM SKU and an availability set to ensure that this workload should have a 5 nines SLA, and used Windows Admin Center to then install the IIS roles on these VMs. In the next video, what we're going to do is configure an application gateway, not only to load balance incoming traffic across these VMs, but to also protect the workload from common attacks like distributed denial of service and common OWASP vulnerabilities. Hope you found that useful, and I'll see you in the next video.